For many years, I've used these Logitech K400 keyboard and trackpad combinations to control a couple of home theatre PCs I have. And they work fine, but the trackpads are pretty rubbish, and since moving to a Mac Mini in the living room, the trackpad gesture support just isn't there, and it doesn't do things like pinch to zoom, the scrolling's not very smooth, it doesn't do all the nice macOS gestures. So it's annoying me, so I wanted to get something better. And that was kind of expedited when I spilled a drink over one of them and wrote it off, so I needed to get a replacement. I thought about getting another one of these and just getting a newer version that has a better trackpad, a bigger one that has better gesture support. But I thought rather than doing something like that and getting another thing that's more designed for a PC with a PC keyboard layout and trying to make it work on a Mac, I'll go for a proper all Apple solution just to get the best possible experience I can. So rather than using one of these, I'm instead going to build a solution using a Magic Trackpad 2 and a Magic Keyboard. And this means I'll have the proper Apple hardware, so the keyboard will have the proper layout, the trackpad will have all the gesture support and the good haptic feedback that these trackpads have, and it should just be a much better experience. So to do this, I've bought a Magic Keyboard 2, not Magic Keyboard 2, but it's just the latest Magic Keyboard, about £85, so they're not cheap, but it should be a really good keyboard. So that's what I've bought there. And then for the trackpad, I'm currently just using my existing one. So I've had this on my desk for quite a while, and I do use it, but I'm not sure if I use it enough to justify the cost of buying another one. So that's it there, and it is space grey, so it won't really match the silver keyboard. They don't do space grey keyboards annoyingly, but it'll do for now. What I think I'll do is I'll use this in the living room as part of this setup, and if I find that I miss having the trackpad on my desk, I'll then buy a white trackpad, put it as part of this setup, and put the space grey one back in my office. But for now, I think I'll just use the space grey trackpad on this because I've already got it, and that saved me like £100, so I'd rather just use the existing trackpad. So the colour doesn't look necessarily as good next to this, but it'll do. However, as you can see with this, these are two separate devices. So they're not really going to work like this to use on my lap on the couch because the trackpad would have to sit off to the side, I'll drop them, I'll end up dropping the keyboard on the trackpad and break it or something like that. So I need a way to connect these together to essentially make it an all-in-one unit, much like this. And for that, there's a couple of different options. So we'll take a look at two of them. So we'll get these out of the way and take a look at what I've bought. So now here's the two products we'll be taking a look at. And the reason I've got two of these is because I bought one, tried it out, and I just didn't get on with it, and I found a flaw that I don't really like and don't really feel is a good design, so I'll be returning it, and then I bought a different one to use instead. So let's see what we've got. The first one we have here is the MagicBridge, made by a company called 12 South. This is the more expensive option of the two, and this is kind of the original branded version of this type of device. This is quite a well-known device, it's been around for quite a long time, and there's a lot of reviews for it. And all you do is you fit the Magic Trackpad in, the Magic Keyboard in, and it makes it an all-in-one type of unit. This is the more expensive out of the two, being the proper branded one, and costs £38.98 including delivery. On the other hand, we have this one here, which is a much cheaper, more generic option. I suppose it's just a bit of a copy of this, really. And this I think the name is BESTAND, and it's made by a company called Spinido. And this was $25.99 from Amazon. So it's a fair bit cheaper than the MagicBridge. And that's why I bought this one first, because I thought it's a cheaper option. It's a bit of plastic to hold the two devices. Why pay more for the fancy, more reputable brand one? So we'll compare the two of them, but in my use, I found that I just wasn't happy with this BESTAND one. So we'll take a look at the problem I found, and then we'll compare the two. But yeah, this one I'm not very happy with, so I'll be returning it. But I thought this video would be useful for people who are trying to decide between the two of these, to really decide whether this is good enough for your use case, or if you need to spend more for the MagicBridge. Because this one would probably be fine for some people. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at them both and compare them. So first of all, we'll look at the BESTAND one, which is the first one I bought. It's a fairly generic box. Weirdly, it's got this sort of flap mechanism, so that lifts up and then that lifts up and then shows that. Don't know. But yeah, that's basically the box there, doesn't really matter. So we'll take it out and see what it's like. So if we pull this out here, it's in the bag, and it's a very simple device. All you have is just a tray here for the keyboard and a tray here for the trackpad. And it feels fairly sturdy, and what is quite nice is on the bottom it's got this very rubbery, grippy sort of finish, so that won't slide around on a desk, which is really good. If you want to use it, all you do is you take the keyboard, slide it in at the back, and then clip the front in. And it kind of helps to flex it a little bit to clip them in, like that there. It's the keyboard installed. Same goes for the trackpad. Slide the back in there, and again, clip the corners in, like that. And that's it now all held in there. Gives you a nice all-in-one unit, and you can access the charging ports and switches at the back. So it all seems pretty good. However, I found one major flaw with this that means I'm not really happy using it. And that is that while it's fine if you pick it up like this, or you pick it up in the middle, that's totally fine. But if you pick it up by one side, it flexes quite a lot. And the main issue I found is if I pick this up by the trackpad side, this happens. The trackpad pops out in the corner. And this is a bit of a problem for me. Because while right there, it's totally popped out, and that would be very noticeable, and you'd have to clip it back in, which is annoying. There's a bigger issue I found with that, and that is not where it pops out all the way. Instead, it's where you maybe only flex it a little bit, and the trackpad pops out like that. And all it does is it just pops out a tiny little bit, and what ends up happening is the glass stays up here, and then the clip kind of gets stuck in this little slot here. There's a little groove on the trackpad, and what happens is the clip sits in here, so it's kind of holding the trackpad in place. But what you've now got is you've got this clip is sitting right underneath the glass. And this is why I've not used it and why I'm going to return it. Because my fear with that is if you look at that, it looks kind of like it's assembled fine. But what now happens is if it's in this state, when I push down on that, or on anywhere on the trackpad really, this clip is now going to be applying pressure upwards onto that corner of the glass. And that just terrifies me because I was super worried that that might break the glass. And the thing is, yes, this is maybe £13 cheaper or something, but if saving £13 means that I break a trackpad that costs £120 new, I'm not very happy using it. So yeah, that's the issue with this one. The keyboard also pops out in the corner there, which is also annoying. That doesn't bother me as much because the keyboard is metal. It's not that fragile. My issue is just with this corner of the trackpad popping out so easily, is that is just prime for breaking that trackpad. As you can see, it's popped up there, and if you push it down, it will naturally sit, so the clip is caught under the glass, and you have to then explicitly flex it to get it so it's all fully under the clip. The other side's a bit better because it's just the way the leverage works, but you can still kind of pop it out. There, the keyboard's popped out there. But yeah, and the trackpad's come out as well at that. But yeah, that's the flaw I found with this. Now, I did try using some double-sided tape under the trackpad to stick it in, and it helped. It didn't pop totally out, but because it's clipped on in the corner, it still flexed a tiny little bit, and that was still enough to cause it to get into that state where the glass is caught under the clip, or the clip's caught under the glass. So even with tape, like double-sided tape holding it in, that was still a problem. So I'm just not really happy using it. Now, this device would be absolutely fine if you just wanted this to sit on a table though. So if you wanted this to just sit on your desk and keep the two devices held together so you can slide it away to the back of the desk, or just not have them slide all over the place, this would work absolutely fine. But for me, because I want to use this on my lap on the couch, I want to be able to use this on the couch, pick it up in any way that I want to really, and then lay it off to the side. Or if it's over at the side, I want to be able to just quickly grab it with whatever grip I can easily get and lift it over. And I don't want to then be having to make sure I pick it up by the middle really carefully, because that's just not very practical. And while I did think maybe I've just bought the wrong thing, on the back they do explicitly show someone using it on their lap. So to me this indicates that they're expecting it to be usable in this sort of setting, but realistically if they're using it like that, if you apply too much pressure to that trackpad in the bottom right hand corner, it's going to pop out there. So I just don't really think it's fit for purpose, which is why I'll be returning it. So, because of that, I then went out and went, right, I'm not going to deal with cheap ones now, I'm just going to buy the proper branded one that seems to be more reputable, and I bought the MagicBridge. So now let's take a look at the MagicBridge and see how it compares. So, slide this out here. Because yeah, while this doesn't work for me, I wanted to show a comparison just because it is cheaper, and if you do just want something to sit flat on your desk, the BESTAND one is probably fine, but it's not going to really be useful as like a lap keyboard for like a home theatre setup. It's just not good for that. Yeah, this comes in a box like that. Oh, ripped the box already, great. And that's it there. It's got this sort of keyboard, fake keyboard already in it with instructions on the back. Oh, and stickers. Okay, cool. And here is the MagicBridge. So what we'll do is we'll take the devices out of this and put them across and see how it compares. And I have already tried the MagicBridge out, and while it is better, it still has a flaw. So it's not a flawless device by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, if we pop these out again, it's easy enough to get them out. I find it better to get the keyboard out first and then get the trackpad out, just because the trackpad's more fragile. So by getting this keyboard out, it makes it easier to flex the whole assembly. There we go. There's a trackpad out. Now, the first thing you'll notice between these two actually is also that where the stand one has a separate bit for the trackpad on the right and the keyboard on the left, the MagicBridge on the other hand is just one open space. And then it has this grey bit here, which is taped down, so we can peel that tape off, like that. And this piece here slides across side to side. Now what this means is that the MagicBridge can be used with a trackpad on the left or the right. Whereas with Bestand, you have to have the trackpad on the right. There's no way to swap it. And it is angled, you know, it slopes it, so you couldn't put them the other way around and hold it upside down. You have to have it that way. So if you want the trackpad on the right, the Bestand might work. But if you need the trackpad on the left, then you can't. You need the MagicBridge or another device. The Bestand will not work for that. And then the reason you've got this sliding bit here is because normally if you put the keyboard and trackpad side to side, what you'll notice is the trackpad sits slightly above the keyboard, and the idea is that the trackpad surface is at the same height as the keys, which works fine and it is quite nice, but in an all-in-one situation like this, it seems a little bit more comfortable to have it so that the trackpad surface is sitting at the same height as the metal on the keyboard, not the keycap height. So what this bit plastic here does is it holds the keyboard slightly higher up and therefore brings the keyboard in line with the surface of the trackpad. So the metal on the keyboard sits in line with the surface on the trackpad. The Bestand seems to do that as well, but it's just done by the moulding. So it seems to just hold the keyboard slightly lower down and then raise the trackpad. No, it holds the keyboard slightly higher up and lowers the trackpad slightly down. So this does the same thing, it's just moulded in. Whereas with this, it's this sliding piece, which means you can put them on either side, which is quite nice. So I'm right-handed, so I'm just going to slide it over to the left, and we can slot these two devices in. So yeah, I'll put the trackpad in first just because it's the more fragile one, and we can clip that in there, clip that in like that. Do the same for the keyboard. And then if we just, again, flex it and clip this under. And there you go. That is now the MagicBridge assembled. Accomplishes a very similar task, and as you can see around the back, rather than having the big sort of dents cut out, you've now got these holes, so you've got holes to access the charging ports, the switches, all that sort of stuff. And it definitely looks like a very elegant device, so I'm pretty happy with it. However, there are still a couple of flaws with this. It's not a flawless device at all. So, like the other one, if we pick it up by the bottom right hand corner, the trackpad pops out again. So this is not a flawless device, it still has the same issue. However, this one is at least a little bit better, which means I'm happy enough to continue using it. With the MagicBridge, rather than clipping in the corners like the other one, this one clips using these horizontal clips along the top and bottom, which means that when the trackpad does pop out, the clip isn't at the same angle as the sort of groove between the glass and the metal in the trackpad. So this plastic cannot get caught under that glass. And therefore, even if it's popped out, if I were then to use the trackpad and put downwards force on it, it just clips right back into position. It doesn't get stuck with that clip under the glass. So I'm not as worried about this damaging the glass on the trackpad. So at least I'm a little bit more comfortable there. However, the only other flaw I found with this is that whereas on the Bestand one, you've got this bit of plastic that separates the trackpad from the keyboard. On this one you don't, and that's probably because they want to be able to make it left and right hand compatible, and you couldn't really do that if you had a bit of plastic here. But what this does mean is that if you twist it, because it's obviously got a natural slight bit of twisting motion, the keyboard and trackpad rub up against each other. And this makes quite a nasty sort of grating noise almost. Now that is a bit of an issue, because even though like the noise itself is a little bit annoying, my fear would be if that ended up causing scratches to appear on the side of the keyboard or the side of the trackpad, especially if over time, say, bits of grit get in here, or just little bits of dust or whatever got down this gap here, you could end up with them sitting between the two devices and grind into the metal and just damage them a little bit. So, I mean, obviously it's not a huge issue because it is the side of the thing that's inside it, but if you ever wanted to use your trackpad and keyboard separately, or you wanted to sell them on, if they've got big scratches on the side, that might not be very good. So what we'll do now is we'll pop the keyboard and trackpad out of this and use a bit of tape to stick the trackpad in, and then also put a bit of tape down the side of the keyboard to stop them grinding against each other. And once you've done that, it kind of fixes both of those flaws it has. It is a bit annoying having to fix a device like this with tape, given it's £38 or so. It's not a cheap device. I would expect it to be a bit better designed, but with that fix, it works pretty well, and it still works a lot better than this. Because with this, I did try taping the trackpad in and the keyboard, but I still found that the trackpad still popped up and got caught under this clip. It didn't come out as far, but it still did get caught under there. So first of all, let's tackle the trackpad. So all we need to really do for this is just along the top hand side, stick a bit of double-sided tape, and that'll tape it into the back of the MagicBridge here and stop it popping out in this corner, and that'll basically solve the problem. So I've got this basic double-sided tape here, but it's really, really thin, and the problem is on its own, it sits below the depth of the little rubber foot on the trackpad, so it doesn't actually stick to the case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this black electrical tape and just put a bunch of layers of this across the back of the trackpad, just to almost stand it out a bit, just so I can get it so it's in line with the existing rubber feet. And then if I do that, I can then stick the double-sided tape on, and that should hopefully space it out enough that it'll sit in a sort of, that the tape will sit in line with the feet and actually stick to the bottom of the MagicBridge. So I'll do all that off camera and come back. Okay, so that's done. So all I've done is I've put a bunch of layers of electrical tape, maybe 5 or so layers, on the bottom of the trackpad along here between the 2 feet, until it was in line with the 2 feet, so essentially it was a flat surface across all of them. And I've put a layer of double-sided tape on here, and we can use this to stick it into the case. So pop that tape off there, just peel the backing tape off, and then hopefully this should stick in. So that can come off there, there's double-sided tape, and we can stick that carefully so it doesn't get stuck too early, right in there, keep pushing it to the back, keep pushing it to the back, and clip it in. There we go. So that is now stuck in there. And we'll try it out after the keyboard's back in, but hopefully that should hold it in place and stop it popping out at all. So now that's stuck in, let's start the keyboard. Just to stop it grinding up against the trackpad, because I just know it'll cause wear and tear to the side of the keyboard or the trackpad. This is dead easy to do though. Just going to use some normal sellotape, and we're just going to put a thin layer up the side of this keyboard just to protect it a little bit. So if we take some tape here, it's long enough, and I'm just going to sit it so it sits flush against the top surface of the keyboard or slightly below it, like that there. And if I just do this up the side of the keyboard like that, so it's sitting very slightly below the surface, you probably can't see it on camera, but it's basically sitting up almost in line with the surface of the keyboard. You can then stick that on like that, and that'll protect it. And even though maybe there's like a fraction of a millimetre at the top here that isn't covered, that'll just stop me feeling the tape from the top. And it'll work fine because it'll still space the trackpad out enough so it won't grind against it. And now that's stuck on there, hopefully, if I'm careful enough, I can just cut the tape up the side of the keyboard like that, and then maybe tear it off, kind of following in line with the edge of the metal. It's not super easy to do, but like that there, and then hopefully, there we go, tear that off. That'll do, close enough. A little bit of excess there, but we can just try cutting it off, or we can just stick it under. It's not too bad. Don't know why I'm showing this because it's probably very self-explanatory and doesn't really need shown on video, but anyway, there we go. That's now taped on there, and that's just a simple layer that will protect the side of the keyboard. Cut off that excess at the end there, just because I don't want that showing from the back. There we go. And it's very discreet, but that should protect it. So what we can now do is bring the whole assembly back in together with the trackpad stuck in and slip the keyboard in. So exactly as you'd expect, just slide it in there, clip it in at the bottom, and that's now assembled. And now if I hold it and try and flex it like before, obviously there's still flex there, I've not fixed that, but there's now no grinding noise, that's totally silent. So they're no longer grinding against each other in a way that would damage the metal. It's more just the side of the trackpad is grinding up against sellotape, and that's not going to cause any problem at all. So that's worked really well. And yeah, you can't feel anything there, so it's not like it's sitting proud or anything. So that fixed it. Likewise, now they're both assembled, you can see that the trackpad being glued in or taped in is definitely helping, because I can pick it up by this corner here and the trackpad stays in place. It doesn't pop out like it did before. It still has a little bit of motion to it, it's not totally strong, but I imagine the tape might take a little while to stick better, but it's no longer popping out totally proud, it's just sitting in there perfectly fine. So this means if it's sitting on the couch and it's like an arm's length away, I can easily reach over it and grab it by the nearest corner and pick it up and bring it towards me without worrying about the trackpad falling out. So there you go. I mean, that's fixed it. It's just a little bit naff that you have to use tape to fix a product that costs £38. Like, I'd have expected this to be a little bit better out of the box, but it does work now. Now, as for the usability of something like this is so much better than using this Logitech. Just having the actual Apple trackpad has made such a difference because it's just so much better. It's got all the gesture support, it's got the proper haptic feedback. And because I use this on my TV at a distance, if I'm, say, browsing the internet on it, having really good pinch to zoom is really useful because sometimes something will be a little bit too small to see and I can really easily pinch to zoom and read it. And then I can scroll around the page with your 2 fingers while zoomed in. It's just really, really good. So while this is definitely not a cheap way of doing it, you know, this is well over, I don't know, it's coming up with like £200 plus worth of stuff versus this, which probably costs about £40. It's not a cheap way of doing it, but the experience is really, really good. But yeah, that was a look at the MagicBridge there. And while it's definitely not without its flaws, it does work pretty well. You just might need to use a bit of double-sided tape to stick the trackpad in and do that to stop the 2 devices grinding up against each other with tape. But it does work. And as you can see now on the back, you've got the charging ports, switches, it's all a pretty elegant little all-in-one device. And definitely a lot better than that Logitech. So that was a quick comparison between the MagicBridge and the BESTAND from Spinido, I think. And yeah, while the BESTAND is cheaper, it's about £13 cheaper, it does have a slightly bigger design flaw just because of that clip getting caught under the corner of the trackpad and in my mind risking cracking the trackpad potentially. And also, this you can have them with the trackpad on the left or the right, whereas with this you need to have the trackpad on the right. So in terms of what's best for you, I'd really let you make up your own mind if you're buying something like this because it really depends on what you're doing. But from what I've seen trying the 2 of them, if you're happy having the trackpad stuck permanently on the right hand side and you're not planning on lifting it up by one side, you're just going to want it to sit on a desk and potentially hold the 2 devices next to each other. In that case, the BESTAND, Spinido BESTAND, I don't know what it's called, the BESTAND one is absolutely fine. Now, if you need to have the trackpad on the left hand side, the MagicBridge is your only option out of the 2 of these. You just can't do that with the BESTAND. Now, if you wanted to use it on your lap or use it handheld, again, I would go with the MagicBridge. Just because even though I did have to use a bit of tape there, it now does hold the 2 of them securely. And even without tape, the trackpad does pop out occasionally, but it doesn't risk damaging the corner. So there you go. That was a comparison between the 12 South MagicBridge and this cheaper version from, or the BESTAND, which is a cheaper version made by Spinido. I still don't know what the model and what the company is, but that's just a comparison between the 2 of them. And what I'm surprised with these is that they're both flawed. Neither of these is perfect, which is something I would expect to be fairly simple to get right because it's just a tray that holds 2 devices that are a very standard size. But anyway, as for the difference between the 2 of them, I suppose it really comes down to what you're doing. If you just want something to sit permanently on your desk and you're happy having the trackpad on the right hand side, the BESTAND is probably fine. It only really has the issue when you pick it up by one corner, So if you're just clipping two devices in this and letting it sit on your desk permanently flat, it would do the job okay. However, if you want to pick it up by the corner or just really handle it a bit more carelessly, I would advise against this just because of the way that clip gets caught under the glass, and in my mind could potentially risk cracking the trackpad. And for me, the £13 saving for something like this isn't worth the risk of damaging a £120 trackpad. Now, the other sort of difference is being able to have the trackpad on the left-hand side. If you want to be able to do that, you need to go for the MagicBridge out of the two of these. You just can't do that with the BESTAND. The MagicBridge is a lot better in that respect. You can have the trackpad on the left-hand side. And while it still has that flaw where the trackpad will pop out if you lift it by the bottom right-hand corner, and I've had to tape it in, at least taping it in on this seemed to fix it. Whereas with this one, the clip is just so liable to pop out, even taping the trackpad in didn't fix it. And with this one, even if you don't tape the trackpad in, at least when it does pop out, the clip just sort of sits there and it clips back in. The clip can't get caught under the glass on this, which at least means that it's not liable to damage your trackpad as much. Whereas with this, just because that clip's right in that corner, I just felt that was totally going to risk breaking the glass. So yeah, that's a bit of a comparison between the two of them. As I keep saying, they both have flaws, neither device is perfect, but I think for me, I'm able to work around the flaws on the MagicBridge a lot easier than I'm able to work around the flaws on this. With this, I just couldn't really fix it. I couldn't get the trackpad to tape in properly. So yeah, hopefully that's of any use for people who are looking at buying one of these devices and they're trying to figure out what's best for them. But yeah, once I've worked around the flaws, this whole combination does work brilliantly as a sort of home theatre PC keyboard and trackpad combination, and it's just so much better than anything else I've used. So yeah, hopefully you found that video helpful, and if you're interested in buying either of these, there's links in the description. Thanks for watching.